Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what we all do wrong when it comes to marketing our businesses on Instagram. We, in the beginning, are comparing ourselves to other accounts, existing accounts that have lots of growth and lots of success, and just like ultimately having that comparison syndrome where we feel like failures because there are so many other accounts out there that are doing really well, and then we compare ourselves thinking that we're not doing great. And so what we're here today to tell you is that that's an unhealthy practice, and there's a lot of other things that you can focus on, and we're going to dive deep into exactly what those things are. But first, we want to talk about why it's an unhealthy thing to focus on when it comes to how many followers you have, right, Crystal?
Totally. And I've fallen into that trap, many a times myself, growing my account over the period of time. And some things too to remember, that it's unhealthy practice to compare yourself to someone's engagement and their follower accounts, because there could be simple things like they've been in business longer, or they've been on Instagram longer before it was really a thing for businesses to be doing right now. And so it's easy to get stuck into that trap of comparison, and feeling like your numbers or how many followers you have deems the success that you have. I actually know tons of businesses, mine included, that we don't have tens of thousands of followers, but we do have great businesses. We have six-figure businesses. We're working with clients on a consistent basis. We're hitting our income goals and things that we're doing, and those numbers aren't always attributing to that.
Right, because in reality, what we don't see as in Instagram followers or people who are stalking other Instagram accounts, we don't see all the work that goes in behind the scenes that grows the actual business. And sometimes what you see on the surface level is just scratching the surface. You have no clue what work is happening in the background, what successes they're seeing, or what they've done to grow their accounts or their followers up until this point. So if they have a really engaged audience, if they have lots and lots of followers, there are probably very key factors that went into how they got to that spot. And so we're going to talk about all of those things that you could start focusing on instead of the actual numbers. And I just wanted to say that the reason focusing on a number of followers is the wrong metric to worry about is because and I'm sure you've heard this, it's a vanity number. Because it looks good on our account. It makes us feel, slightly successful, whether or not we're making sales or not. It might feel good to have a high follower count, but what we know is that high number of followers doesn't always equal the best, most successful business. What actually equals the best, most successful business for you and for me is engagement, and the right type of engagement, and having the right type of followers that are ideal clients. So we know that because of our answer to the question, what do you want more? A high number of followers or direct access to your ideal clients who are ready to pay you for your expertise, right? So which one would you rather have? That vanity number that looks really good, or direct access to ideal clients who are ready to just throw their money at you, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and a follower isn't an ideal client. A follower could be just someone who enjoys, seeing some of the behind the scenes or enjoys some of your work, but they're not someone who's ever going to hire you. I mean, raise your hand if your family stalks you on social media, So, your followers aren't always attributing to the ideal client. And an example of that is, posting photos of your lunch or your content, and, maybe you're vegan and you may get some food enthusiasts that are following you, and they just, love to see some of the things that you're posting here or there. Or in my case, sometimes I'm doodling randomly on my iPad and stuff. And some people like to see like my tips of me going through and doing different things on my iPad that I could do digitally instead of having a paper notebook, you know? So you get these different people that may be following you for different reasons. Maybe they just enjoy the content and they're there to just kind of be a looky-loo, so to speak, but they're not your actual ideal client. They're not the kind of people who are going to click buy. They're not the people who are reaching out to you and asking about your services and are engaged with digital products that you're offering and things like that. So when you think about that, you know, keep that in mind. You might have thousands and thousands of followers, but are they going to be the type of people who are actually buying from you? And that's why it doesn't really directly relate to the success of a lot of businesses who are doing great, but don't have thousands and thousands of followers. And that's okay.
Right. Because ultimately, the thing that we have to focus on as business owners is creating the right type of content that attracts the ideal client, the person who's going to buy from you. And one engagement, one follow, one DM is better from your ideal client than 100 from people who would never buy from you, aren't interested in what you have to do, but happen to like your photo so that they can reshare it with their audience or whatever it is that got them to like that photo. Is it something that's actually going to turn into a business transaction for you as a creative business owner? Or is it just, you know, that, you know, vanity number of a like? So first, what we should do instead of focusing on the followers on our account is to focus on developing the right kinds of content. And I like to call these content buckets. Everybody who talks about this calls them content buckets. And we have to focus on not just the content and the buckets that those pieces of content fit in, but also the messaging and what we're conveying to attract our ideal client. And we're going to get into how to develop the right kinds of content here in a second. But before we move into that, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think that just you hit the nail on the head. Is having those content buckets or categories, or sometimes people use them as ways that they organize how they post different things like that. But I think having those pieces are important. And I want to say real quick that sometimes people are like, well, you know, when you go into that, everyone's always like, you know, you should have like educational pieces or things like that. And I don't feel like my subject matter expert. And that's wrong, because you're an expert in what you're trying to provide somebody in a service. So when you start thinking of like what those content buckets could be, as we start to break that down, don't immediately put up walls, you know, and go, oh my God, no, this is like, I can't talk about that. Like, Crystal, you know more about photography than I do. And it's like, no, you know about your client process. There are ways that you can educate people. So don't immediately put up walls when we're like, hey, we're going to start talking about these categories and busting into things that you should be talking about and doing to get the ideal client that you want to have, because that's really what's holding you back.
Right, exactly. Because if you have, everybody has skills. Everybody has skills that someone else doesn't. Whether your skills are extremely in depth or, you know, took you years and years to get, you have skills that other people don't. And if you are looking to grow a creative business, if you're looking to scale your clients, it's important to focus on these content buckets that we're going to talk about. But definitely what Crystal said, you have skills, you have you have valuable insight, and which leads us into the first content bucket. So good content buckets are valuable as well as educational. And there's more, but I want to give some examples. So when you start thinking of your content buckets, the first one is going to be content that's valuable to your ideal client and educational in helping them understand something that they don't necessarily 100% understand. So what content would your ideal client find extremely valuable? So I'll just use myself as an example. People who follow Ivory Mix, or people who even follow the Creative Boss Method, they want to grow their business. They see success in what we do, and they see that we're able to create lots of valuable content for our social media, and they want to understand how do you create valuable content? How do you create stunning photos? How do you create captions that convert? Those kinds of things. So what kinds of
Mhm.
content could I create that would be valuable or educational? And so some of the things that come to mind and some of the things that I use are like lists of, step by step, or maybe it's diving deeper on a particular topic, or maybe sharing a secret that is not really a secret, but someone who isn't very, very familiar with the topic might find very like mind-blowing. And you never know what someone doesn't know unless you start sharing those kinds of things that helps someone make those mental transformations, like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, this person has lots of valuable insight on a topic I want to learn more about. So let me follow them and let me save this, right? Or can you think of anything on your side, Crystal, that comes to mind for valuable or educational content as like an example?
Yeah. So, and for me, it's mine. I lean a little bit more on the things I know in photography and the fact that I was self-taught, which I know you were too. And so I know that, talking about those kinds of things relates to the ideal audience that I'm trying to reach. And that's the business owner who either right now is still in the position of DIY and they want some of the tools and resources that I've created to help them get better, or they're at a point where they want to outsource. So I like to hone in on, what is a new tip that I just learned about shooting a particular product, like clothing. I've been on a lot of clothing stuff lately. And so it's like, what are some hacks and stuff that I've learned to show people, like, taking something as simple as hanging it up and then taking it when you edit it and trimming the hanger out. So it lays the way that you want it to and hangs the way you want it to, but it doesn't look like it's actually on the hanger. So,
Yeah.
just little things like that I find that are fun, that people are like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Or, they want to engage and find that extremely valuable to them, whether or not they're planning to do it themselves anymore, or they still see the value in it.
Well, and I think that is, I really want to dive a little bit into that for everyone listening, because I know that people who want to create online courses or maybe an ebook or are
Mm-hmm.
selling those kinds of things, they're afraid to share too much educational content because they're afraid and they have a fear of like a lack inside of them, that
Mm-hmm.
if I share all the information I have, what do I have left to sell? What value do I have if I'm just sharing it for free? And the thing that you do when you share your photography hacks and you share those things, someone could spend a month gathering all of your free content and maybe creating their own crystal version of a photography class, right? For free, if they really wanted
Totally.
to go through all of your content for a long period of time. But people don't have that time. The thing that you sell and the service that you have is really the time saver. You are the value, and you're packaging it in a way that's got value for them to save them time. So those little bits of information that you put out there for free, you're not undervaluing or devaluing what you have to sell, because what you have to sell, even though it might be some of that same information, is packaged in a way that's saving them time and money. So don't be afraid to
Mm-hmm.
overshare.
Yeah, I think people also can get scared about the fact that you feel like, and I know because I used to do this, and I would feel like, oh, so and so is going to follow me, and like you said, they're gonna want to take that information, or they're going to start taking clients from me because they're going to start learning my tips, and whatever kind of deal. And it's like kind of getting over that and realizing that there are tons of resources and people for everyone to follow and absorb content from. And like you said, if somebody wants to do it, if someone wants to go take a client of yours and that client leaves, then you know what, that's okay. That might happen, but chances are it's not going to happen, because I haven't lost not a single client because somebody came up and learned something from me and went and asked them, hey, can I work with you? Or, hey, let me, undercut this and I can give it to you for cheaper because I'm newer or something. I've never had that happen to me, but I know it's something that creeps into our minds from time to time. We're really worried about those people watching us and then wanting to take those ideas and run with
Yeah.
it. So you really got to put that stuff behind you.
Yeah. Just be at ease. Know that there's enough to go around for everyone, and the way you're going to attract the right audience is by really showing up and being your best, most valuable educator. And we're going to get into more of why this is all important, but really starting with not being afraid to share your value is the first
Absolutely.
one. So
Yeah.
your first content bucket is valuable and educational content. So the next content bucket would be things that are relatable. So, you know, you might want to share a photo of your family, or you might want to share a photo of you coloring crystal, because other people, it may not directly relate to what you have to sell. Okay. But we're not on Instagram to sell every day. We're there to connect with our audience, be there to develop relationships, and be of service. And the only way that we can attract people who fit our ideal clients is by being relatable. People gravitate towards other individuals who mirror themselves, you know? So if you can show up on Instagram at least 20% of the time, not selling anything, just sharing something behind the scenes, at least 20% of the time, where you're, you know, just sharing your morning routine or talking about your family or whatever feels comfortable for you. You have to develop what those boundaries are, but what messages might your ideal client say, hey, that's totally me. I'm exactly the same. I totally relate to this. And so, I think that was really great that you shared that example of like coloring. I do it all the time with photos of my dog or my kid, because I'm a mom and I've got a family and I've got pets and things like that. And so do all of my other clients and members, right? So it becomes
Totally.
like a relatable conversation. And so that is a content bucket of its own.
Totally. I think it's also fun because like, so for me, I think you gotta learn yourself, but you also gotta learn to become comfortable with yourself, especially in social media, because it's like you can show a little bit of you without showing all of you. We're not saying you have to, drop all, boundaries, so to speak, but you can find different aspects of your personality or things about yourself that you can kind of hone in on and share. And like for me, I know personally, and Kayla's gonna laugh because I make faces. So it's just what I do. Like, so even in my own brand photos, and even if you go to the Creative Boss Method website, like I just am known to make faces. It's just kind of what I do. So I just decided, you know what, that's just how it's going to be. So all of the blooper photos just started becoming something that I started using even more because it's how people saw me when they met me in person. And so it made me relatable, but it also made me relatable because they're like, okay, if she's willing to be goofy, I can be okay with being me as well, or telling her that, hey, I feel kind of awkward in these photos. Can you help me out? And so it gave me a way to relate to people in a different sense. So even with just bits of your personality kind of showing up and just being yourself, or having those, quirky photos and things like that you can post, stay in your lane and do you. Find your unique thing that you can
Exactly.
share.
Yeah, totally. I love that because it's so important to at least have some of your content be less focused on, business, and just kind of giving your audience that space to relate to you, whether you have funny faces or whatever, like you have to determine what those things are, what you're comfortable sharing. And it's helpful if you come up with a few things that you think your audience might relate to, and then commit to sharing a little bit of that behind the scenes, of your life, so that you can be relatable and create that relationship. And so when you are developing content, just think about some of those things. The next content bucket is what might inspire your audience. So inspiring content is another content bucket for your ideal clients, because it's going to demonstrate how you have achieved goals that they have right now that you can help them with. So inspiring content is not educational content as much as it is showing them the results that come after they work with you or learn from you or buy from you. So Inspiring content could be testimonials. So it's not just maybe about you as much as it is about clients that you've helped. Inspiring content might be case studies, which is kind of like testimonials. But it could also be a story. It could be some kind of a story that you have to share. And you could do that visually or with words and pair them together. But that's a content bucket all on its own that I think a lot of people miss in their content creation.
Absolutely. Or even just walking them through like the process of how they could reach their goals. Like I always like talking about the client process, not even just tips for those who are doing it themselves, but just, transitional, I guess you can call it like a transition statements. It's like, here's where you're starting. Here's your pain point right now. And here's how we're going to alleviate that. And I talk about like how people are extremely busy. And while they want to do photos themselves, they still love doing that. They're running out of time for it. So their content is suffering and their marketing is suffering. And it just becomes this thing that collapses on itself. So let's solve that problem by doing a monthly retainer or something like that. So you can even talk about kind of the steps of the process and things that might solve one specific problem for them, and help show them that in that way.
Yeah. And I think what would help in showing that process is to show what the result is after doing that, and having those testimonials or having those examples from your own business to demonstrate for your ideal clients is one way to really inspire them. And that's what the job of inspiring content is to do. Is it's supposed to inspire people to follow you because you're obviously an authority in that topic, or
no pressure.
Yeah. But all it really takes is taking bits of your past and developing a little bit of a story. It doesn't have to be this, you don't have to be some novel writer. You just have to create statements that demonstrate that transformation has happened for either a client in the past or for you in the past. So where you were, what happened when you changed, and what the result was. That's really all that it takes. So think about what might inspire your ideal client to reach their goals that you can help them with, and then you'll have your that content bucket. And sometimes I like to just, if I can write an entire like page of different examples, or if I'm in like the mood to write, sometimes it happens and most times it doesn't. If I'm in the mood to write, I might just write a bunch in one sitting, and then that inspiring content could be good for my entire month, because I'll sprinkle that in throughout the month of content, So if you're in the mood to write about, your history or whatever.
I'm laughing because if you're like me and you're never in the mood to write, yeah, I always keep a note, like a note on my phone, because I was like, I don't know, I was talking the other day about being on my Peloton and how I was listening to Whitney Houston step by step, so it's like sometimes the moment just strikes you. And so for me, it's more of like random moments. So I'm like, okay, how can I organize this? So I put it in a note section so that I can go back to it. So when I sit down, I'm like, okay, I don't really want to have to do this, but I know I need to, because I want to relate to you guys and talk to you. Let me go through and map out my content. And I go and I pull those ideas, because I'm more of a sporadic person where I'm just walking around and something comes to me. So if you're not the kind of person who has a day where you can write, that's okay, because I'm there with you. Just, keep a notepad, or, have a note section on your phone that you can kind of keep some of those things as it comes to you. Like the other day, it was about wine,
Yeah.
I mean, wine was the fruit of moms, I think is what I said, or something like that, and it struck a chord with a lot of people right now, and it was hilarious. And so if anything strikes you in that case, write down some of those pieces that can be relating. And I think going into our last bucket, entertaining. So, yeah, and we could just kind of dive right into that, I guess.
Yeah. So, entertaining content is exactly what it sounds like. So that's its own bucket on its own. Entertaining content is stuff that shows that you have a human side. So yes, it's also relatable. It's relatable content, just like we've already talked about, but it's entertaining in the sense that it gets people liking it, commenting on it, and sharing it. And that is going to become important as we talk a little bit more about engagement and stuff like that. But as a content bucket on its own, entertaining content has a lot of value because it is relatable, but it also has that sort of viral effect. Because if it truly is funny or hilarious and it relates to them and you and your industry, it can really get you more engagement and more eyes on your content, which brings in, which is the entire goal, more ideal clients, right? So if you can think of things that are funny, that relate to your audience, and that is in your niche, share it. Quotes are great for that. Memes are great for that. Funny photos of your funny face are great for that. You know what I mean? So like anything that's human, relatable, just like spur of the moment, or even if you're resharing memes that, you know, have to do with your niche or your category or your topic, whatever your business is about, that's its own bucket on its own.
Totally.
Yeah. So those are the 4 buckets. So when we come, that's the first step. The first step really is developing your content buckets. Those are your 4 buckets, and I'm sure you're coming up with all kinds of ideas at this point. But the second piece to growing an engaged following on Instagram of ideal clients is creating what is called meaningful social interactions. So what a meaningful social interaction is direct messages, comments on your posts, saves of your posts, or shares. So when people share it to their stories. But what isn't meaningful social interaction is like likes or those like easy things that people can do. So the way that you get people to engage with your content and the way that you get your ideal clients engaged with your content is by creating content that generates those kinds of reactions. So, you have to ask for people to DM you, or you go out and you DM people. So that means if you want to get meaningful social interaction from ideal clients, you have to actively go out and search for your ideal clients. Okay? And that doesn't mean just going and liking a bunch of photos. This means actually commenting on their stories or commenting on their posts, sending them a DM, letting them know that you really liked something that they talked about, right? So that's what gets more ideal clients, is actually engaging in the way that you want them to engage with you. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Absolutely. No, I think that's good. I think the part that people shy away from the most is engaging in DMs or commenting on some things, or like, oh, a bunch of other people have commented or whatever. But that's how you sometimes get people's attention. I know personally, when I sit there and I go through and I'll comment on people, sometimes I'll get them to reach out to me and they'll start following me and they're like, oh, hey, I didn't realize you do strictly product photography or whatever. And, I was really interested in doing it. And I'm like, boom, there's a client, because I was just engaging with somebody because I liked the picture of their dog or whatever.
And that's,
so, sometimes
that's all that it takes.
Yep. And sometimes that's how it happens. But if you're not going out there and taking a moment to actually engage with people, no one's going to engage back with you and following them. I go through cycles of going through and looking for some new businesses and people to follow and reach out to and connect with. And so that's another great way of making sure that people are seeing you in a way, but then you're also engaging with them and giving them an opportunity to reach out to you when they're ready.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that just leads us into the third thing that you can look at and do when it comes to getting your ideal clients on Instagram. And that's measure what matters. So obviously, we're advocating for you not to measure your follower number. But the things that you want to measure are going to be things like, did my activity on Instagram grow my email list? Did I get more clicks to my sales page from Instagram? Did I engage with 10 new accounts in direct messengers today? Did I schedule a call with a new client this week? So those are the kinds of things that you really want to measure when it comes to your business, instead of looking at things on Instagram like follower count or likes on a photo. You know what I mean? It's the meaningful social interaction mixed with actual business metrics, right? So,
Absolutely.
For me, website clicks are great, but I want to get people on my email list, like whatever I can do to get my followers to, subscribe as soon as they follow me. That's the best thing, because that means that I'm attracting my ideal client. My stuff's resonating with them. They feel that I'm relatable, that I have value to share. So they're going to go and they're going to go into my link in my bio and they're going to subscribe because they want more. That's what you ultimately want to happen, right? So
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
That's where for me, it's, how many people I talk to, because my business is more service based and, dealing with their products and almost sometimes one-on-one. And so for me, I know that if I've had, so many, clicks or DMs that it usually starts with the DM and then it goes to an email and then it goes to a phone call. And so I know if I've had so many DMs, I'm reaching my goal of, I think if I have 5 DMs, I'm reaching a goal of having those 3 emails to get to the 2 clients that are going to book. And so I know, that's my ratio, the 5, 3, 2. And it happens every time because I know when I'm talking to them and I'm honing in on what it is that they want. And I know that they're reaching out to me because they like my content. They already know that I'm the right person because I speak to someone very specific with a specific style, that when they get to the point of booking with me, that it's a done deal. And so for me, that's how I look at what is successful for me. It's not the matter of how many followers I have. It's how many people are actually reaching out and engaging with me, and how many businesses are seeing that I'm, here and available and, able to solve their problems. So for each person, it's going to be very different. But like Kayla said, looking at, whether it's, websites or emails, or whether or not they're going to your Amazon link or they're DMing you, decide what is going to be best for you in terms of what you want your goal to be. And then stay focused on that instead of focused on how many people are following you or liking your photos.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just find that it's great to do like a debrief after every week. What did I do well? What did I not do well? What could I do next week to hit more of these particular goals, or make sure that I'm relating, creating, engaging content that gets people engaging. So if I start posting stuff that I think is educational or valuable, and my audience or my ideal clients aren't necessarily responding that way, it's possible that I might want to continue testing for another week, or maybe just start a new strategy next month or next week. It's all dependent on what kinds of success you've seen at that point. But definitely those are the metrics that you want to focus on. So I think that's about it for us today. So for more help on Instagram, growing your small business, make sure that you're on the wait list to join the Creative Boss Society, which is opening its doors very soon. In the society, we're delivering you bite-sized plans to help you move your business along each month, and a community that will hold you accountable. So that's it for us today.
Yeah. You don't want to miss out on it. So make sure to check us out over at the Creative Boss Society. And you can do that by going to www.creativebossmethod.com. And you can find out more information about us there, as well as past podcast episodes. So make sure to click subscribe, and we'll see you next week.